Welcome, fans. Thank you for checking in to my review for American Horror Story Hotel, which is Season 5, Episode 5, titled Room Service. Now, a spoiler, again, if you have not watched the episode, please do not watch my review unless you heard it was pretty violent and you want to know what happened, but you don't want to see it because it makes you squeamish, which I understand. This episode was like a big, huge punch right in the face. Last week's episode, The Devil's Night, was a punch in the face, but this one really knocked you out. This episode was written by Ned Martel and directed by Michael Gall. Now, here's what's so controversial about this week's episode. Alex gives Max, the little boy who's dying from the measles, he gets staph. She gives him her blood, and he survives. He goes home. No big deal. He eats his mom, eats his dad, goes to school. It's an everyday kid life. I believe he infects his entire class with his blood while they're having a Halloween party. Now, for a kid who pretty much made it past death, the teacher is kind of not very nice to him when she takes his little, pirate knife and he's talking to Madeline. Which conveniently she's dressed as an angel for her Halloween costume. I thought that was kind of funny because the whole class turns into vampires and they kind of turn into devils. So it's an angel against a whole bunch of little devils. I thought that was a nice little significance there. Max takes Madeline into the closet and he tells her how good he feels. And he tells her to drink his blood, and she does. And the teacher comes in afterwards, and Madeline doesn't feel well, and she bites the teacher, starts drinking her. The principal comes in, sees Madeline drinking the teacher, and he tries to do something about it, but all the little kids have turned against him because they're all sick. And Max cuts the teacher and he tells the kids, if you drink him, you'll feel better. And they do, and they feel so much better. So it's a very violent, vulgar scene. I'm very surprised that the show was able to get away with this scene. I'm only laughing because I'm a writer. To get away with something like that on television, I don't think would be heard of. But in my opinion, it was a pretty violent scene. It was a pretty violent scene, and they pushed the episode with that one. So sometimes I laugh when I'm a little uncomfortable. But don't get me wrong, though. I think it was great. A really great scene. So the kids come out of the school because they've killed most of the adults inside the school. And they all say the same thing, that one guy came into the school and killed the adults. And because they all say the same thing, the cops let them go home. And that's the last we hear of them. Now, John, after he wakes up with Sally at the end of the episode on Devil's Night, he goes and reports what happened to his lieutenant, who doesn't really believe him and thinks that because Holden was taken, he came back to work too early and he's under a lot of stress, and the murders have really gotten to his head. So it's just time that they part ways, and he fires him. So John gives him his badge and I guess his gun. Then he wakes up later on after that with Sally in the bed, and he does not remember picking her up at the bar. And she tells him that it's their destiny to be together, which, I don't know if you guys have noticed, but Sally is kind of matches the profile of what one would call a stalker. She's, always all over John, especially when she saw him in that first episode. And she kind of seems to be very obsessed with him right now. But I just wanted to point out that observation because that's what happened with John in the episode. The big thing that happens in this episode is Iris and Liz. So, I apologize, excuse me. Donovan takes his mom to Ramona and convinces Ramona that Iris is the perfect person to be their snitch to let them know what's going on inside the hotel with the Countess. Ramona reluctantly agrees. Iris goes back to the hotel, and she needs to feed. Liz takes her to the back and gives her blood from the Countess's private stash. And she tells her the story of how Nick, which is who Liz was before she was Liz, became Liz. So we get Liz Taylor's backstory in this episode. Basically what happened is Liz used to be a gentleman named Nick. And I apologize. I thought I had Nick's name written down right here, and I do not. But it was a very beautiful episode. Nick comes to the Hotel Cortez. He has a wife and a son, and he leaves them to come to the hotel on a business trip. And while he's there, his colleagues go out to the strip clubs, but Nick stays in his hotel room and gets dressed up in a pretty little negligee, excuse me, I tongue twisted that, puts on a little fur around him, and just maybe, I don't remember if he puts on makeup, but he doesn't go out of the room. But the Countess comes into his room, and he feels very ashamed that she has seen him that way. So she asks him why he's crying, and he says, because I'm ugly. And she says, no, you're not. You're beautiful. And at that moment, that's when she encourages him to be her. So, excuse me, Liz does not go through a gender change, anything like that, like an actual operation. She just decides to stay there at the hotel and be Liz Taylor from then on. The Countess dresses him up, full-fledged makeup and dripping with diamonds, and encourages her to go into the hallway and go get a bucket of ice as her new persona, Liz Taylor. And at first, she's very reluctant, but she does it. And her little strut down the hallway is wonderful. I love Dennis O'Hare in the American Horror Story seasons. I just love him. He's such a great multi-actor. He can do so many different roles. Anyway, after he grabs the ice, after she grabs the ice, she turns around to go back to her room, and she's almost there, and that's when her two colleagues that she came to the hotel with see her and give her crap about being a guy. About being a guy but dressed as a woman. And she takes pride of herself and says, I am not gay. And she tries to explain that she is a woman. She's always felt that way. And because of that, she is. But the two men just basically don't understand anything she's trying to tell them. They turn away from her and they say, well, wait till we tell everybody. And excuse me, I apologize. My wife tells your wife. Unfortunately, they made the mistake of talking smack to Liz. And once they turn around, the Countess is standing there and she kills them with the swipe of her killer glove, of her beautiful killer glove. And that's when Liz is shocked about who the Countess is. The Countess does not make Liz like her. I think that's important for everybody to know that Liz is still just a human. She does not have the disease. But the Countess says something important to her. The Countess explains how there are two sides of us, of every person. And if we ignore both of those sides, that we suffer. So therefore, when Liz only embraced her male side of her, she suffered. But when she embraced her female side and became Liz Taylor, she's no longer suffering. Which I thought is also a very good analogy for everybody in their life. So Liz basically tells Iris that she can't deny who she is any longer and that she has to feed. So Iris goes upstairs and basically kills the two jerks that have checked into the hotel that day. I mean, and they are pretty much jerks. I think anybody who has worked in the hotel industry or any sort of service industry has faced two people like that before. And we've all wanted to do the same thing. We don't, of course, but it's just, when you see somebody do it on screen, that you've always wanted to do, and you'd obviously never do it because you got scruples. It's pretty fun to watch. Anyway, okay, hello, can someone please brush Holden's little hair? I mean, I know that my hair is certainly not perfect. I'm a mother, obviously, but that little boy has a governess now, okay? Alex is his governess. She needs to brush that kid's hair. Seriously, am I the only one alone in this? I think I'm going to put in the comment section, thumbs up for if she needs to brush his hair, and thumbs down if, nah, she just needs to leave it alone. It's cute the way it is. I'll let you guys vote. And also the rules for Alex being the governess is that she has to care for the kids at all times. She has to. She cannot ignore her job, and those are the rules. So in that sense, basically, you see where she abandons John and Scarlett. She turns away from them, and it's very sad to see, but that is the rules, and she has to follow them to stay with Holden forever. So that is my review of the show. My one-liner award goes to, of course, Liz Taylor when she says to Iris about the pate that the guests want upstairs, the jerks. Excuse me. She puts a can of cat food on a silver platter, and then she said, bitches want pate, then they shall have, bitches want pate, then pate they shall have. I thought that was funny. That was hilarious. I love Liz. So thank you all very much again for watching my review. If you want to help me out, hit the like button, subscribe, share this with your friends. I know that I don't do the big hoopla behind me, and I am working to improve my channel, but I do hope that, again, I am giving you guys some pretty great reviews, and that regardless of the fact that I am an exhausted person who is multitasking so much, that I hope at least I'm bringing you guys some sort of insight and joy to this awesome freaking show. So thank you again very much, and have a wonderful night. Subscribe.